Hi guys, this is Lowell Stitches. Welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to learn how to make this snatched waist A-line gown with A-line sleeve and extended neckline. Let's get right into it. For this style, the main fabric is 2.5 inches and I bought half inches of the black material for this. If you're like a size 8 or lower, you can manage, but if I had 3 yard, I would have preferred to use 3 yard. So my fabric is folded into 4. As you can see, I'm cutting both the front and the back together, and I've also marked my starting line. And for this style, you're going to need your bust measurement and your half waist and hip measurement. I've marked my bust point, which is 10 inches. I came up by 2 inches to get my chest line because this particular free gown has a sleeve. Then I measured my half waist, which is 16 inches. You're going to need your hip measurement and your full length, as I said. I'm going to drop my measurement on the screen for you to see. So now let's start. I'm going to start by measuring my shoulder. You're also going to need the measurement of your shoulder. So the shoulder I'm working with is 15 divided by 2, that's 7.5 inches. Then I added half inches, which is making everything 8. I'm going to come to the chest line and mark it, and then I'll connect it. So now we're going to mark out the neckline, and for the neck width I will be working with 2.7 inches, and this is because I do not want it to be too wide. If it's too wide, you're not going to like how it's going to look. So for the width is 2.7 inches, and for the depth I'm just going to be working with 1 inch first because we are cutting both the front and the back together. So I'm just going to connect it. So after connecting, what we're doing next is to mark out our shoulder slant. So I measured 1 inch and I'm going to connect from my neck width down to my shoulder slant. If you've been watching my video, you know I always add half inch allowance to my shoulder slant, and that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to add half inch sewing allowance to the shoulder slant. Next is to measure our armhole curve. So from your new shoulder line to your chest line, you're going to measure what you have. For me, I have 7. Divide it into 2, that's 3.5. Then you come in by half inch. Then what you're going to do is to use your curve ruler to connect those points down to the chest line and to the shoulder line. And you can use your free hand if you're very good with it. So the next thing we're going to do is to take our bust measurement on the chest line. So the bust I'm working with is 33 divided by 4. I have 8.2 thereabouts. So I'm going to mark that now. And because this is a free gown, I'm going to be adding extra 1.5 inches allowance. And the reason why I'm doing this is because of ease. So this is ease, 1.5 inches. And after that, then I'm going to add 1 inch sewing allowance. I hope you get it. So you're making it a total of 2.5 inches allowance. So I'm just going to connect it to my bust point. So we're going to repeat the same thing too on the half waist. The half waist I'm working with is 28 divided by 4. That is 7 inches. So I'm going to mark that now. And then I'll add 1.5 inches ease allowance. Then I'll add the 1 inches sewing allowance. I hope you get it. So I'm just going to connect it now. So what we're going to do next is to just connect it downward because the gown is like an A-line, and as I told you, I am managing it. So of course you're going to measure what you have on your fabric to make sure that it is more than your hip, and this is obviously more than what I have is more than my hip, so I don't need to measure my hip unless you're working with somebody with a bigger hip. Then you need to make sure that your fabric is up to. So I'm just going to connect from my half waist measurement downward, like just going to free it a bit like an A line, just going to free it downward. So if I have like 3 yards or 3.5 yards, I would have been able to make it more wider, but I think this is okay. It turned out really nice. So now for the length of the gown I'm working with, the length is 58, and this is why I didn't even bother measuring it because what I have here is 59 inches, so plus 1 inches seam allowance or sewing allowance. So I already have what I want. So I currently have 59 inches and the length I'm working with is 58, so it is fine. So if you're working with somebody with probably a shorter length like 57, you need to measure your length to make sure you have exactly what you want. So this is how it looks. So what we're going to do next is to cut it. So I'm just going to start cutting, and before I forget, if you're working with a fabric like this, I would advise that you pin it because they usually don't stay where you want them to stay. So pin it just to avoid any mistake, especially if you're cutting both the front and the back together. So if you notice, I pinned everything, I pinned it down, especially because the reason why I did that is because my table is kind of short, so I don't want any mistake at all. So I would advise you to do so, but if you're a pro, then there's no problem. You can just leave the pins out. So I am done cutting now. We're going to separate the back from the front. So we are going to be working mainly on the front part now. So what I'm going to do is to just turn this over on the wrong side because I don't want any chalk showing on the good side of the fabric. So as I said, I am also going to be pinning everything to stay in place before we now start working fully on it. So I am done pinning together. What we're going to do next is to cut out the parts where we'll be adding the black material. But I forgot one important thing. This style has a belt at the back. So to make it easier, I'm starting at that point, my shoulder line. I came down by half inch, the allowance I give. We're going to be marking the points where we're going to add our belt. So what I normally do is my underbust measurement, I come down by 1 inch, and that is where the belt is going to start from. Do you get? So I'm just going to notch this, and it's going to make it easier for me to sew the belt on it when I want to. I don't need to start measuring again. So after doing this, the next thing we're going to do is to work on the neckline. So you're going to come here and measure 2.5 inches. I think 2.5 inches is the best to use, except if you want it to be very big, to be very wide, then you can measure 3 inches, but don't go beyond 3 inches. So now we're going to be measuring 2.5 inches, as I said, and we're going to be measuring this down. So you're just going to measure it like this, mark out the 2.5 inches all the way to the down part, and then we're going to connect the line. It's going to be a straight line, of course. So you're going to connect from the 2.5 inches back to your neckline. So this is why it is very important for your neckline not to be very wide. You get, so you're just going to connect it back to the neckline. But if you're working with a plus size, you can make your neckline 3 inches, 3.5 inches, depends on how wide you want it to be. So I'm just going to connect the mark and connect it all the way to the down part. Okay, so this is how it looks. I am done connecting. What we're going to do next is to cut it. So I'm going to cut that line out up all the way to the neckline. So this is what I have. So now what I cut out, I'm going to be using it as my belt. Remember I said I'm managing the fabric. My main fabric is 2.5 yards. I don't know why I keep saying inches. 2.5 yards. So it is not enough. So I'm just going to use what I cut out from this neckline to measure my belt to make my belt. So I'm just going to divide it, and it is more than enough. It is enough. So I'm just going to divide it into two, and that is what I'm going to be using as the belt. So what we're going to do now is to join both the front and the back together. This is my back, the back fabric. I've opened it up, and you notice that it is the good side that is facing up. So now what we're going to do is to pick, our front part is now into two. It has been splitted into two. So you're going to pick it and place it on the neckline. Make sure it matches the back neckline like this. I mean the shoulder line actually. Make sure it matches this way. It is going to match because we cut it together. So it's the same shape. Just the difference is what we cut out in the middle. So you're just going to connect it and place it like this. Pin it if you need to pin it. So you're going to be sewing like this on the shoulder line and sew by the side this way. So we're going to be attaching the belt. I have my belt already divided into, I'm going to fold it into two and sew it and close one edge and turn it out and iron it. The part that is not, the edge that is not closed is what we're going to be sewing, attaching to the main dress. See how I place it? It's going to be facing inward. Place it and sew it, and that's how it's going to be. So guys, I am done sewing and this is how it looks. I've sewed on both sides on the shoulder and I've joined it by 1 inches on the side, and this is how the belt looks from the inside. You remember I said you're going to be sewing the parts you did not seal the edge into the main fabric. So I sewed everything down. I repeated what I did on this side on the other side too. The belt is there and it is joined by the shoulder. So the next thing we're going to do now is to measure everything we have now. We're going to measure around this open part to see the length we need to cut out for the black part. I hope you understand. So I'm going to start from the down part and I'm going to measure round. Do you get from the down part, the last end there? I'm going to start measuring all the way around the opening to see the total measurements we have, total length we have. So I am done measuring. What I have in total is 128 inches. So that is what is going to guide the length of the band we are going to be cutting for that black part. So this means that the black part, the length has to be 128 inches and then the width has to be 6 inches, which is 3 inches on fold. And the reason is because we cut out 2.5 inches plus half inches sewing allowance. That is what made it 3 inches on fold. So I have that here already. If you notice, I joined it in the middle because the length of the fabric I have is not up to 128 inches, so I had to join it. So it is okay for you to join if it is not enough. Just make sure you're working with your length, because if it's not enough, then you will not be able to add everything. So now what we're going to do is to go and iron this. You need to give it a very good ironing, and you're going to see the reason why it is very important for you to iron it properly. So guys, I am done ironing and this is what it looks like. You see that part I joined, I give it a very good ironing. So you just have to work with the length you measured on your fabric. If your fabric is not enough, then you can just add to it. You can join to the fabric so that it can be enough. Just make sure you give it a good ironing so it doesn't look rough and noticeable from afar. So now what we're going to do is I'm using this part as my middle line. That is where I joined. That is where I'm using as my middle line. So you're going to open it up like this and fold it into two equal parts. Do you understand? Fold it into two equal parts. For me, this is the part where I joined is the midpoint, because they are the same length. Do you get? So fold it into two equal parts like this, and then you're going to use your pin to just hold it and secure it. So after doing that, what we're going to do is to mark the neckline. So we're going to be using this line we got after ironing to form as a guide. So that is going to be our midline. What I'm going to do is from the start, I'm going to be measuring 12.5 inches, and that is what is going to be the depth of our neckline. So you could make it longer if you want to, but I think 12.5 inches or 12 inches is okay. So you're going to follow that midpoint and sew all the way to the down part from the neckline you measured. Do you understand? So I'm going to do that and show you how it looks. If you notice, I had to join it at the down part because it was not enough, so I had to join to it. So guys, I am done sewing and this is how it looks. You see, I started sewing from the point where I marked. So this is the opening which is going to serve as our neckline, and I sewed all the way to the down part. So what we're going to do next is to open this up. You just have to watch carefully. You just open it up like this and just turn it over this way. You just have to watch how I do it. You see that if you don't iron it, it's going to be very difficult for you to sew. And because we ironed, everything is already looking neat. So what we're going to do next after this is to attach it to the main fabric. So now on the main fabric, we have to get the midpoint on the back neckline. So I'm just going to fold it into two equal parts and then notch it. So already we have the midpoint for the black fabric where I joined. If you didn't join it, then you have to also notch your midpoint. So we're going to be joining both midpoint together to make sure that we have equal neckline. So you're going to pick the black fabric this way. That midpoint, you're just going to attach the rough edge to the neckline this way. So you're just going to pin it. I'm going to do that quickly. So you're going to pin it this way, as I said, and then you just have to watch carefully as I do this. Trust me, if you watch it, you will be able to get it. So from there, you're just going to continue pinning. Make sure that you have both midpoint on your main fabric and the material you'll be using as this design right here. So I'm just going to pin it all the way to the down part. So I am done pinning and this is how it looks. So now I'm just going to turn it over this way for you to see how it's going to look when we sew it with our sewing machine. So now what we're going to do next is to just turn it over like this. You see how it is? Just flip it over this way, then you'll be able to pin the other side too. So we're going to be repeating the same process we did for the other side. On this side, I'm going to pin out everything and then I'm going to sew it. So I'm going to sew it and show you how it looks. So I'm done sewing it with my sewing machine and this is how it looks from the inside, very clean. Of course, when we're done, I have to overlock everything to give it a very good finish. So now the next thing we're going to do is to attach the sleeve to it. Do you understand? We're going to be attaching our sleeve to the main fabric. So if you notice on this upper part, I didn't close up everything and I did that because I want it to be easy for me to fix the sleeve. So it is not really a big deal. So just leave some inches open so that you'll be able to fix the sleeve when you want to fix it. So this is how it looks. Let's cut the sleeve. For your sleeve, before you cut out your main fabric, I would advise that you cut it out first. And that is exactly what I did. I cut out the length I needed, which is 24 inches. I just cut it out plus the allowance. Then I just cut it before I started cutting the main fabric. So if you see, the length now is 24 inches and the width is by 60. That's the length of the length is by 60, which is the length of fabric. So that is what I'm going to be using to cut out the sleeve. So I'm just going to fold it into four to cut both sleeves together. So the measurement you need is just the length of your sleeve because it's an A-line sleeve. Unless if you're working with somebody with a plus size person, then you need to measure the width of the sleeve. So I'm just going to measure 4 inches. This is going to be 7 as my sleeve cap. So I'm just going to connect it from the edge this way. I call this kind of sleeve a quick sleeve. You really need to do a lot of calculation. So I'm going to measure 10 inches here. So I'm going to measure 10 inches. I'm just going to draw a straight line. This will help to guide how I'm going to curve the armhole curve. So I'm just going to come down by 5 inches and then I'm going to connect from this sleeve cap down to that 5 inches. I hope you understand. So I just came down by 5 inches and then I connected the curve together. So I'm going to measure around to make sure I have exactly what I have on my armhole, which is 10 inches. So you have to measure your armhole round. Unfold is 10 inches. So that means the round armhole I have on my main fabric is 20 inches. So from that point, I'm just going to connect this line downward like this, like a line. So I'm managing the fabric. So this is all I have. So as I said, you're going to measure round to make sure you have your armhole measurements before you cut. So now we're going to cut it out. So after cutting, we're going to come to the down part and try to eliminate sharp edge. So what we're going to do is to just come up by 1.5 inches and then we're going to just mark it this way and then try to connect it back to the sleeve. Do you get? Doing this, you're not going to be having that sharp edge by the side that usually comes when you don't cut it out. So what we're going to do next is to attach the sleeve to the main fabric. So I'm just going to take out one piece. Make sure that you notch the midpoint. You notch it this way. And then you're going to place it on the middle line. That is where you join the shoulder, both shoulders together. And you're just going to sew this way. Sew all the way to the edge. Do you see? Very easy. Do the same thing, and when you're done, you're going to turn it over and sew. So I'm just going to do that and show you how it looks. Also, at the down part, you're going to be folding in the edge by the allowance you have. As you can see, this is not equal, so I'm just going to trim it off, and after trimming it off, I'm going to be folding it by 1 inch allowance that I have. Guys, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. Like and share this video. So I am done sewing, and this is how it looks. Though I have not joined it by the side, you're going to pick it from this point and just sew by 1 inch downward, and that is it, guys. So simple. Thank you for watching, guys.